At our graduation ceremony, the girl I grew up with confessed her love for me in front of everyone. The crowd went wild. I just stood there, confused. But I already have a girlfriend. The whole place went silent. Irene's eyes immediately welled up with tears. Jake, haven't you been in love with me for years? A slideshow of photos of me and Irene played on the big screen, some of us alone, some together, from when we were kids all the way to now. The background music was a Taylor Swift song. You could tell Irene had put a lot of thought into this. She was up there giving the valedictorian speech, and halfway through her perfectly fine address, it turned into a love confession. Under the gaze of hundreds, you could hear a pin drop. My roommate, Mike, nudged me. Jake, haven't you had a crush on Irene for years? This is your chance, man. Don't blow it just to be stubborn. Hearing that just made me more confused. It was true I'd had a crush on Irene. But didn't she hate my guts? She told me to stop following her around like some pathetic puppy. She said she wouldn't choose me even if I were the last man on earth. So yeah, I gave up a long time ago. My dad and Irene's dad are best friends, practically brothers. Growing up, the thing I heard most was Irene's mom saying she was saving me to be Irene's husband someday. When I was little and didn't know any better, I'd get all excited and say, okay, and even declared I was going to marry my big sister Irene. Once I was old enough to know better, I'd just look down, smile, and blush so hard I thought my face would catch fire. We were always inseparable, and Irene never publicly denied our special connection, which made me think that maybe we really would get married one day. That lasted right up until we graduated high school. When I was filling out college applications, my first choice was a school that was a better fit for my major. When Mr. and Mrs. Davis found out, they pressured Irene into giving up the school she really wanted to go to. If you and Jake are at the same school, you can look after your future husband. Exactly, the two of them will have each other for support. Does this mean I should start preparing her dowry? The conversation between our parents at the dinner table was getting more and more ridiculous. I kept my head down, my face burning, and didn't notice Irene's expression growing darker and darker beside me. All of a sudden, she flipped the table. Can't you see I don't like you? You're so spineless. Clinging to me like this. Have some self-respect. Irene's outburst left me frozen in my seat. Humiliation, shame, embarrassment. A storm of emotions I couldn't name swirled inside me. I clenched my fists, staring at the undisguised disgust on Irene's face. My heart felt like it was being sawed at by a dull knife over and over again. Mr. Davis slapped Irene across the face and told her to apologize to me. What is this nonsense you're spouting? Saying you don't like Jake? It's a question of whether Jake would even have you. The mood soured for both families. But Irene was defiant. Whatever. I'm going to Harvard, so don't you dare follow me. There's no us. She stared right at me when she said it, like I was some kind of monster. Being looked at like that by the person you like is a terrible feeling. In the end, Irene didn't get into Harvard. She ended up at UCLA with me. I didn't see her again until check-in day, when I spotted her in the new student area, dragging a suitcase behind her. We hadn't seen each other all summer. When she saw me, a flicker of anxiety crossed her face. At her mom's urging, she reluctantly came over to help me with my luggage. I got stuck at this dump of a school with you. Are you happy now? That was the first thing she said to me, so quiet that only we could hear. My stomach clenched, and I sidestepped her offer to help. She froze, her hand hovering awkwardly in midair. In the end, it was her mom who smoothed things over and walked me to my dorm. On the way, she apologized. Jake, Irene's just immature. On her behalf, I'm so sorry about what happened. I dragged my suitcase along. Irene had already disappeared. Mrs. Davis, it's in the past, I mumbled. Irene and I are grown up now. We don't like those childhood jokes anymore. I'll be sure to keep my distance from her from now on. I meant it. Childhood jokes can't be taken seriously, and a childhood crush can't be forced. But Mrs. Davis grabbed my hand, her face full of disapproval. What do you mean, keep your distance? You and Irene grew up together, you know each other inside and out. That girl just doesn't know what's good for her. In my heart, you'll always be my #1 choice for a son-in-law. I listened, not knowing what to say. Mrs. Davis had always been so good to me. She didn't have a son, but whenever she saw cool model cars or limited edition sneakers, she'd buy them for me. She always half-joked to my dad that she was just buttering up her future son-in-law. Seeing my silence, she smiled and gently brushed a stray hair from my forehead. Jake, you're at the same university now. I know what Irene's like. Just take care of her. Be patient with her. She responds to kindness, not pressure. I felt sick, like I'd swallowed a fly. I liked Irene, yes, but after hearing her reject me so bluntly, I couldn't bring myself to just suck it up and chase after her. I pulled my hand from her grasp. Mrs. Davis, I can get to my room by myself. Irene was tall and stunningly beautiful. It wasn't long before she became the new it girl at UCLA, attracting a swarm of admirers. As she wished, I kept my distance. Not long after, I saw her post on her social feed announcing she was in a relationship. In the photo, she was cozy with a guy who was handsome, smiling brightly next to her. They looked perfect together. Her feed was no longer the bland, empty page it used to be. She started posting pictures of them holding hands and screenshots of their daily chats. In those chats, you could see him being a little bratty or unreasonable at times, and she always responded with gentleness. That's when I realized Irene had this tender side to her, that with someone she truly liked, she could be patient, thoughtful, and forgiving. In that moment, I let go completely. I decided to end my one-sided crush that was never going anywhere. But one day, about 6 months into the school year, she suddenly texted me, saying she was downstairs. I went down and found her waiting impatiently by the dorm entrance. She held out a gift box. My mom made me give this to you. I took it and opened it. It was a high-end men's skincare set. I was about to refuse, but Irene had already turned to leave. Is there a point to all these games? It's never going to happen between us. I didn't even get a word in. Seeing how desperate she was to get away from me, my heart stung, even though I was over her. I looked down at the gift box in my hands, a lump forming in my throat. I unfriended Irene and sent the money for the skincare set to her mom. Mrs. Davis called me immediately, asking if Irene had been mean to me again. I tried to explain, telling her that Irene and I were adults now and that things like this could cause misunderstandings and problems in her relationships. Mrs. Davis was silent for a few seconds before hanging up. I thought that would be the end of it. But a few days later, on my way back to my dorm, a guy I'd never seen before ran up and slapped me across the face, accusing me of hitting on his girlfriend. We ended up in the dean's office. It was only then that I learned the guy was Irene's boyfriend, Chad. Irene arrived soon after. The second Chad saw her, he started complaining, his eyes red as he accused me of hitting him. Irene patiently comforted him, but her eyes kept darting toward me, her brow furrowed. I heard everything. You were going to break up with me for him. Irene's expression was complicated. From their conversation, I pieced it together. Mrs. Davis hadn't known Irene had a boyfriend. After I mentioned it, she'd called Irene directly and ordered her to break up with him. Somehow, Irene's roommate had leaked this to Chad. After some digging, he found his way to me, the guy Irene had just given a gift to. It wasn't until I showed him the money transfer record and Irene swore up and down that she wouldn't break up with him that Chad finally, reluctantly, backed down. But he was still hostile toward me. Trying to save face after his ridiculous behavior, he shot me a glare and said sarcastically, "You should know to keep your distance when a girl has a boyfriend." I couldn't describe the feeling in my gut. Watching Irene protectively coo over Chad, I said nothing. I just walked up and slapped them both, one after the other. I have no interest in being part of your drama. Chad had started it. In the end, we all got a lecture, and the matter was dropped. But my roommates found out about my history with Irene and couldn't resist gossiping. Jake, it's been half a year. How did you keep your connection to Irene such a secret? You and the campus queen grew up together? So when you said you worked your butt off in high school to get into the same college as a girl you liked, that girl was Irene? I felt a little awkward. At a party at the beginning of the semester, I'd had too much to drink and let slip some stories about high school. After all, back then, all my late nights studying really were so I could be worthy of standing by her side. I explained that there was nothing between Irene and me now, but my roommates didn't believe me. They were totally shipping us, saying it was like something straight out of a teen movie. Sophomore year, I heard Irene and that guy broke up. That afternoon, my roommate came in, wiggling his eyebrows at me, and said there was a pretty girl downstairs asking for me. I went down, and to my surprise, it was Irene again. Irene really stood out in a crowd. In just a few minutes, she had already turned several heads. Another semester had passed since we last saw each other. When she saw me, her expression was complex. "Did you block me?" That was the first thing she said. Her accusatory tone inexplicably annoyed me. "What can I do for you?" I asked, ignoring her question. I even took a step back. Sensing my defensiveness and coldness, Irene's face fell. After a moment of silence, she bit her lip and said with a hint of resentment, "I broke up with my boyfriend." I was speechless. For the past 6 months, I thought I'd done a good job of avoiding her. If I saw her from a distance, I'd take a different route. When my roommates brought her up in their gossip, I never joined in, trying my best to act like I barely knew her. I shook my head, not wanting to waste any more time with her. It was like a girl you'd idolized for years suddenly losing her sparkle. In my eyes, Irene just wasn't as amazing as she used to be. Just like that, I didn't like her anymore. She sensed my indifference and ran a hand through her hair in frustration, looking even more uncomfortable. "My mom found out he hit you. We fought about her for the last 6 months. I know you're the one she likes. She was never happy about me having a boyfriend." Irene went on and on, about her problems, about her mother's interference. After a while, I couldn't listen anymore. "What does that have to do with me?" I couldn't help but interrupt. Irene pouted and avoided my gaze, her voice losing some of its confidence. "You know what my mom is like. I'll talk to your mom and make things clear." I didn't want to stay here any longer. I turned to leave. I was determined to draw a clear line with her entire family from now on. But as I was leaving, Irene called out to me again, hesitating. "Jake, can you tell my mom you have a girlfriend? That way she'll think you've given up, and it'll be better for both of us." I froze. That night, I called Mrs. Davis. I gently tried to explain that childhood promises can't be taken seriously and that Irene and I were grown up with our own separate lives. But it was like she couldn't understand a word I was saying. She just went on. "Jake, don't you worry. I already gave that brat Irene a piece of my mind. When she gets home, I'll give her a good spanking to make it up to you. Irene's just dazzled by all these other boys right now, but she's broken up with him. Girls just need time to grow up. Don't worry, I'll keep an eye on things for you. Jake, you'll always be the only son-in-law for me. That hasn't changed in all these years. I'm not trying to force you two together. Of course it would be wonderful for our families to be joined. But what I'm more afraid of is that you two will miss your chance and regret it for the rest of your lives." My chest felt tight listening to her. My eyes burned, and a tear rolled down my cheek. I hung up after just a few minutes. That same night, Irene posted on the campus confession page. "Even if every other man on earth died, I still wouldn't choose him." My fingertips went numb. The feeling of my heart being ripped apart was sharp and clear. I liked Irene for a very long time, so tearing someone you've liked for that long out of your heart really hurts. I spent the next year trying to numb the pain. The wound had finally started to scab over, but Irene had just ripped the scar wide open, and now it was bleeding again. It hurt so much I could barely breathe. I told my parents what happened with Irene. My dad was furious and wanted to go have it out with Mrs. Davis. My mom and I stopped him. We all agreed that, while we felt bad for Mrs. Davis, it was best to distance ourselves from their family. Otherwise, things would only get messier, and both families would end up hurt. At first, Mrs. Davis would still call and ask how things were going with Irene and me. I'd tell her about the new type of guy Irene was dating. After a while, she must have gotten the hint, or maybe she just felt awkward. Gradually, she stopped asking. Irene really did change boyfriends often. My roommates said the campus confession page was always full of posts about guys from different departments fighting over her, or about seeing some campus heartthrob waiting for her outside her dorm. Meanwhile, I was busy studying for my GREs. College is like a mini society. In high school, we were all a bit dorky. But after a few years of college, I ditched my thick glasses, started working out, and completely transformed my look with better clothes and a new haircut. During my junior year, I went home for winter break. At a family dinner over the holidays, people started teasing me about becoming so handsome and being at the age to get a girlfriend. I remember Jake used to be close with the Davis girl. You two go to the same school, right? Are you together yet? Weren't your parents always joking about becoming in-laws? One of my relatives slurred, a drink in his hand. His words wiped the smiles off my parents' faces. For the past 2 years, my parents had deliberately kept their distance, and our families had barely spoken. We always found excuses to avoid them during holidays. Bringing up the past so suddenly reminded them of what happened after high school graduation. But I wasn't that naive kid anymore. I calmly replied, "She's doing great. She's on the student council and has a really handsome boyfriend." My relative got the message, chuckled awkwardly, and quickly changed the subject. After dinner, I was waiting with my mom by the door for my dad to get the car when we heard someone call our names from behind. My mom and I turned around. It was Mrs. Davis and Irene. Even though Irene and I went to the same school, we hadn't run into each other once in the past 2 years. When she saw me, a strange look flashed in her eyes. "Is that you, Jake? I almost didn't recognize you. You've gotten so handsome," Mrs. Davis said, pulling Irene over. Her eyes were still full of genuine affection for me. Then her tone became a little wistful. "You're a young man now. You look wonderful." I felt a bit embarrassed. I had intentionally avoided Mrs. Davis for 2 years, but she still sent me a gift every single birthday. We exchanged a few pleasantries and then quickly parted ways. I thought that would be the last I'd see of them. But to my surprise, on the second day of the new year, Mrs. Davis and her family showed up at our door with gifts. She held my mom's hands and talked and talked. My mom couldn't keep up the cold shoulder. Irene was there, too. I didn't cling to her like I did when we were kids. I treated her like any other distant female relative visiting, holing up in my bedroom to play video games. "You play this game, too?" I was totally engrossed and didn't notice Irene had come into my room and was standing behind me. My mouse jerked, and my screen went gray. Game over. I was annoyed. This is my room. It was rude of her to just walk in without knocking. But Irene didn't seem to care. She plopped down on my bed, propping herself up on her arms with a warm smile. "It's not like I haven't been in here before." I pointed at where she was sitting, completely grossed out. "Get out. Still mad? Chad and I broke up a long time ago," Irene said, sitting up and moving closer, her voice tinged with exasperation. "I was just a kid then. My mom was on my case my whole life, telling me to take care of you, to be nice to you. Felt like an arranged marriage. When I first got to college, I was finally free, and then my mom tried to force me to break up with my boyfriend. I'm sorry. I'm apologizing for how immature I was back then." Irene had definitely matured in the past 2 years. I could understand her mindset back then, but understanding was one thing. "I accept your apology, but I don't like people coming into my room without permission." I was kicking her out. Irene didn't get angry. She stood up gracefully, assuming I was still mad. She stood in front of me, smiling as she looked down. "Still holding a grudge, huh?" She instinctively reached out to ruffle my hair, just like she used to when we were kids. Like back in 9th grade when she'd tutor me in English because I was struggling before the big exams. Only this time I flinched away, and her hand met empty air. Her expression fell for a second, but she quickly recovered, pulling her hand back as if nothing happened. "Our Jake really has grown up," she said as she walked toward the door. Her words made me uncomfortable. Just then, a sweet female voice came through my headset. "Jake? That sounds a little too friendly, don't you think?" At the dinner table, Irene formally apologized to my parents. She said she was just immature back then. My parents couldn't really hold a grudge against someone so young. But after they saw Irene's family off, they asked me privately about the situation. My mom hesitated. Mrs. Davis apologized so many times. I've watched Irene grow up, and she's not a bad kid at heart. It seems like she was genuinely sorry. It's normal for kids to be foolish when they're young, and Mrs. Davis is a wonderful person. They spoke carefully. Our families had been close for so many years, and cutting ties for my sake had been hard on all of us. I smiled and took my mom's hand. You and Mrs. Davis are best friends for life. You don't have to stop talking to each other just because of Irene and me. Besides, there's nothing between us. We don't even see each other at school. Hearing that seemed to put my mom at ease. As long as there's nothing going on. Irene has really changed a lot. Her mom isn't happy with her now, either. Says she's a total flirt. It's a good thing you never dated her. Listening to my mom vent, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But then I thought about the person I just spent ages placating, even changing my bedsheets and mopping the floor to calm her down. I cleared my throat and said, Mom, Dad, tomorrow, a friend of mine would like to come over. My parents froze, then gave me a knowing look that made me blush and lower my head. Yes, she's a girl. Violet was extremely upset. She said she'd never even been in my room, let alone sat on my bed. And now someone else had beaten her to it. So she booked a flight that very night. It was a huge campus. For 2 years, we never ran into each other. But when I got back to school, I started bumping into Irene every few days. She didn't shy away from our connection either. She'd say hi, introduce me to people as her little brother from next door. She'd also wait for me downstairs from my dorm to give me things. I tried to refuse, but every time, she'd say her mom forced her to bring it. Using her mom as an excuse, she'd shove the stuff into my hands before I could think of a reason to say no and then turn and walk away. This happened a few times. My roommates started gossiping. Jake, what's the deal with you and Irene? Yeah, she's suddenly so warm toward you. Don't tell me you two are getting back together? I was speechless. Getting back together didn't really apply to us. I could only explain we just had a family dinner over the holidays and cleared the air about the past. My roommates all said, oh, in unison, with expressions that screamed juicy gossip. Dinner? What kind of dinner? An engagement dinner? I put my head in my hands. How could I explain that there was absolutely nothing between Irene and me? My roommates didn't believe me, and Irene's attitude toward me had done a complete 180. She added me back on Messenger. Occasionally, she'd send me a message. Sometimes it was a short, caring note, other times, an update on her life. I couldn't figure her out. She seemed to be treating me the way she did back in high school, showing just the right amount of concern. Just as she'd said, she had been hostile before because she was immature, but now that she'd grown up, she wouldn't be so extreme. I wanted to tell her I had a girlfriend, but it felt too deliberate. I figured I should wait for the right moment to tell her clearly. Finally, finals week was over. She texted me asking when I was heading home. I looked at the text and replied, I'm not going home. I'm flying abroad to see my girlfriend. A long pause, then a single emoji came back. I didn't think much of it. I figured that counted as explaining things. I started dating my girlfriend my junior year. She was a grad student from the university next door, Violet. She came to our school for a debate tournament. I thought she was a lost freshman and gave her directions. We added each other on Messenger, and one thing led to another. We have a lot in common. She loves anime and video games, and she's patient and gentle with me. After a while, we just got together. Our relationship has always been very stable. I'm just not one for public displays of affection, so I never made a big deal about it with my roommates. This year, she was accepted into a year-long exchange program abroad. I was confident we could handle a long-distance relationship, but to my surprise, she showed up at my house with her parents early in the year. Over dinner, they settled our engagement and planned for us to get married right after graduation. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but she held my hand and told me, completely serious, that this was the only way she'd feel secure. Soon, my visa was approved. I spent the entire summer with my girlfriend. She was incredibly busy with her research lab and didn't have much time for me. When it was time for me to leave, she was full of guilt and couldn't bear to see me go. She promised she'd finish her research early so she could be at my graduation. She said she'd bring a huge bouquet of my favorite yellow roses and propose to me in front of everyone. I told her it was okay if she couldn't make it, but she insisted. No way. What if someone else gets to you first? I rolled my eyes and teased her for being so possessive. I never thought her words would come true, that Irene would be the one proposing at my graduation. My head was pounding. Irene's face was a mask of frantic desperation as she rushed down from the stage, reaching for my hand. She didn't touch me, because someone else stepped in front of me, shielding me. A familiar warmth enveloped me. I looked up and saw a beautiful, familiar face. I threw my arms around her in surprise. You're back? Even though she'd promised to come to my graduation, her experiment had run into a problem with the data a week ago. I really thought she wouldn't make it. But here she was, holding a bouquet of my favorite yellow roses. Violet did not look happy, though. Her eyes were fixed on Irene, her usually lovely face sharp and cold. After a moment, her voice was like ice. My husband is taken. That public smackdown was a huge loss of face for Irene. She stared at me, then at how close Violet and I were standing. It was obvious what was going on. Her face turned beet red, and she finally squeezed out a single question through clenched teeth. Who is she? She's my girlfriend, I said quickly. I had never tried to hide it. I told her, I said, sensing the tension from the woman in front of me. I looked up at Violet to explain. I told her I was going abroad to see you. Irene's face got even darker. You went abroad to see her? I thought you were just on vacation, maybe looking for a new girlfriend. Irene said it through gritted teeth. She had never even considered that I might have a girlfriend. She thought I had been waiting for her all these years. I was completely baffled. Then I remembered that emoji. So she had misunderstood this whole time? But even if she had, when was I always in love with you? We barely even talked these past few years of college. My reputation was on the line. I had to set the record straight. Even if I did have a crush on her when we were kids, I hadn't felt a single shred of affection for her in years. This public confession just felt bizarre. Irene looked wounded. She took a step back. But you added me back as a friend, she said in disbelief. And you always chatted with me when I messaged you. And I asked you to dinner and you went, didn't you? She said, listing her evidence. I was stunned. That was a student council mixer. I looked at Violet. It was a student council dinner and we all split the bill. I never had dinner with her alone. Violet rubbed my lower back, her eyes showing absolute trust. Then she looked up at Irene, a hint of derision and disdain in her gaze. Just because you grew up together, my Jake is obligated to be in love with you? Miss Davis, do you really think you're so irresistible that every man in the world should just wait around for you? Forget the fact that my Jake is already taken. Even if he weren't, is this kind of self-serving, dramatic gesture what you call a sincere confession? Who was this big show for, anyway? To impress everyone else? Or to make yourself feel better? Violet looks refined, but she has a wickedly sharp tongue. When we play games, she can always verbally annihilate the other team for me. I let out a snort of laughter. Seeing Irene looking like she was about to collapse, I gave Violet a little tug. Humph. Someone else beat me to it again. Violet muttered in my ear, in a voice only I could hear.
Ide furguten.
Violet looks sweet, but she can be pretty possessive. Irene's stunt turned into a total fiasco. She was the main topic on the campus confession page for days. Before, it was always guys fighting over her. But maybe because she'd been such a flirt and hurt so many guys, this time it was a pile-on. A bunch of them came out of the woodwork to mock her. Serves her right. A woman like that is rotten to the core. Dated her. Trash. She deserves to be a joke. So, you really think being pretty makes you invincible? Let's be real, the groom-to-be's fiancée is way more beautiful. She's got that cool, elegant vibe. I couldn't keep a low profile. That's the internet for you. Luckily, graduation was over, so I didn't have to go back to campus and face the scrutiny. Mrs. Davis came to our house, but she was there to confront us. Irene told me Jake is getting married, and you never said a word to me. She even told me she loves Jake and was going to propose to him. You people were just playing her for a fool, she said, looking at my mom resentfully. After all these years I've been so good to Jake. How could you do something so shady? My mom quickly caught on, and her expression turned cold. Susan, when your Irene didn't like my son, he couldn't come near her. But the second she decides she likes him, my son is supposed to be waiting for her? My Jake is a great guy, he's handsome, and plenty of girls like him. Why on earth would he have to hang on for your Irene? Those few words left Mrs. Davis speechless. She knew she was in the wrong, but she couldn't swallow her pride. She could only look at me, her eyes red. But Jake never said he was dating anyone. Your whole family kept it from me. If you had just told me, my Irene would have given up hope and wouldn't have made such a huge fool of herself at graduation. I felt exasperated. I had no idea Irene was going to do that at the ceremony. I already told her I had a girlfriend. I hadn't hidden it. Irene just didn't believe me. In fact, she was so arrogant that she thought her grand gesture at graduation would be enough to win me over, just like that. Mrs. Davis was at a loss for words. She opened her mouth to say something else but was cut off. My Jake's love life is his own business. And even if he weren't dating anyone, it's not like your Irene is his only option. My parents were angry now. They stood in front of me, protectively, and showed Mrs. Davis the door. Susan, I think this is where our friendship ends, my mom said to her coldly. Irene asked to see me one last time. I talked it over with Violet. She respected my decision. We met at the dessert shop we used to go to in high school. When I arrived, she was already sitting by the window waiting. It had been a while. She looked worn out. She wasn't wearing her earrings, and her clothes were wrinkled. She stared at me for a long time after I sat down before finally speaking, her voice bitter. Do you love her? I had just sat down, and I already wanted to leave. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. She had to be kidding. If I didn't love Violet, why would I have been with her for years, to the point of getting engaged? Just then, the waiter brought over our dessert. It was tiramisu, my favorite. Irene said, I know you love tiramisu. I froze for a second and looked up at her. She continued, I know your favorite color is blue, that you love sunny days, and that you have a habit of chewing on your pen when you're stuck on a problem. And when you're happy, your smile is beautiful. We grew up together. We knew each other pretty well. I could tell. She was heartbroken right now. I thought I didn't like you. In college, I got my first boyfriend, and I thought I really liked him. I was so good to him, but my mom didn't approve. She forced me to break up with him. Later, we broke up. Everyone thought it was because my mom wasn't happy, and at first I thought so too. I even started dating lots of guys just to spite her, changing myself, trying to escape her control. But over time, I started to realize all the guys I dated were just like you. They were cheerful and considerate. They all had a little piece of you in them. And these past few years, when you really started ignoring me, avoiding me, I started to miss you. I remember every little detail about you from when we were younger. As Irene spoke, her voice started to break. I never touched my spoon. I just listened quietly. I listened as she said, so I regretted it. But my pride wouldn't let me admit it. When I saw you again over the holidays, I was so happy. I begged my mom to take me to your house. I thought if I apologized, everything could go back to the way it was. I thought you still liked me, that you would wait for me forever. Irene, I cut her off. She looked at me, her eyes filled with hope. Irene, I stopped liking you a long time ago, I said. In that instant, I saw the light in her eyes flicker and die. It's like you said, we grew up together. When we were little, I followed you everywhere. You were pretty, you were smart, and our families were close. I'll admit, back then, I really liked you. I even dreamed about marrying you one day. I was being honest. It was a childhood crush. Then and now, Irene was never a bad person. I picked up my spoon and gently nudged the tiramisu on my plate. But you have your pride. You didn't want to be tied down. And I have my pride, too. I stopped and met her gaze, my eyes serious. I'm not bad looking, and I'm a pretty great guy myself. Why would I marry someone who humiliated me and looked down on me? Irene, what gives you the right? Irene's face went deathly pale. Her knuckles turned white where her hands rested on the table. If I had just done it sooner, she asked, unwilling to give up. She didn't finish the question. I was already standing up. I looked down at her and shook my head. The moment you told me to stop following you, I gave up on liking you. From that moment on, she had lost her chance. I turned and walked away without looking back. When I stepped outside, Violet was waiting for me under a tree. I ran over to her with a smile. Our intertwined figures walking away were perfectly framed in the window, right in Irene's line of sight. The image must have stabbed her right in the heart. When I got married, we didn't send an invitation to Irene's family, but a mutual friend told me what was going on with them. They said that after graduation, Irene got into a master's program at Harvard. Meanwhile, Violet and I stayed in Los Angeles. I got into the graduate program at my school and stayed. Every now and then, our graduation day fiasco would pop up on the campus confession page. Even after I became a teaching assistant, I'd still get students asking me, "Professor, is it true that the campus queen confessed her love to you in public at your graduation?" Violet never let me live it down. Violet and I had a son. When he was 4, Violet had to go abroad for a research project, so our son spent the summer with my parents. One day, while my mom was out with him at the park, she ran into Mrs. Davis. After so many years, they greeted each other. Maybe because my son was so cute, she couldn't resist bending down to play with him. "Where are your mommy and daddy?" she asked playfully. He said his daddy was at work, and his mommy had gone to a very far-away place and couldn't come back. My mom told me about it later, but I didn't think anything of it. But the night before Violet came home and we were supposed to go pick up our son, I got a call from a number I hadn't seen in years. It was Irene. On the phone, she told me she was single and was coming to find me tomorrow. She said she had been waiting for me all these years. I was completely baffled. "Irene, have you misunderstood something?" "Jake, I know everything. She passed away. You're a widower with a child. I really don't mind. I promise I'll treat your son like he's my own." Before I could say anything, the phone was snatched out of my hand. "Who needs you to take care of my husband and my child? I'm perfectly healthy. Thank you very much. So you can keep dreaming for the rest of your life." Violet was genuinely furious. Her voice cracked as she yelled. On the other end of the line, there was a long, dead silence. Then, the sound of the call being disconnected. I looked at Violet. She looked back at me, her teeth gritted. After all these years, how is she still so delusional? "That's it. I'm starting Pilates tomorrow. I need to live to be 99 just to be safe." Couldn't help it. I laughed and pulled her into my arms.